point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello everybody, this is Energy Week with George Harvey and the amazing Tom Fennell, who happens to be here only in the spirit. Instead, we have Alicia Scudder.
Hi.
Say it more loudly, Alicia.
Hi, how are you?
Alicia has no experience whatever with what I'm asking her to do here, which is the engineering for Energy Week. So if I give her instructions, don't be surprised. She's doing pretty well so far, but she's only got into this. I'm going to start out today with an appeal, and so I guess I'll just read this. Alicia, could you put that picture up? Just click on the picture. There you go.
Sure.
This is an appeal I'm making on behalf of BCTV and Energy Week, and I'm just going to read this. As many people know, under the Trump administration, cable companies are allowed to reduce funding for public access television. That means that Energy Week, BCTV, and all other activities on public access television may have to find other means of support to keep local shows on the air. Energy Week may have to come up with $480 to cover costs for the coming year. So I'm asking viewers to support this show and BCTV. You can make a donation online by going online to BrattleboroTV.org. Under the menu, find Support BCTV. It's near the bottom of the screen, where you can donate online using PayPal. When you donate by PayPal or credit card, just below amount, you will find a box you can click on that is labeled Add Special Instructions to BCTV. And if you want to support Energy Week or any other particular show, you can say so there. I want to thank everybody who donates to Energy Week. To do that, I will send a softbound copy of my little book, At the Pearly Gates. I read a chapter of that last week, and I'm going to read another this week. I will send a softbound copy to each of the first 24 people who send $20 or more to support this show. The book will be sent at my expense, so the $20 goes directly to and entirely to BCTV. If you prefer, you can get a Taoist play called Gaining the Pass. Instead, remember to tell me where it should be sent. As a matter of information, you can find these books and others I've written at 2 Brattleboro bookstores on Elliott Street. Everyone's Books has them softbound. Artrageous has them hardbound. They can also be they are also available online at Barnes & Noble, and they can be found at Brooks Memorial Library. Now, I'm going to read a story from At the Pearly Gates, and the illustration that you see on the screen here is from it's the what is called the Pillars of Creation. The whole book is illustrated using materials from the Hubble Space Telescope. This is called Candidate for a Job as a Choir Master. Merton Throgwhistle was a professional church organist, and he hoped that his musical skills would be found useful in heaven. He asked St. Peter, "Is it true they play box organ music here?" "Oh, yes." Mr. Throgwhistle looked thoroughly satisfied. He quickly became smug and started acting ingratiating. "Tell me," he asked, "what piece of music do you like best?" "Oh, my personal favorite is Louis Armstrong doing Heebie-Jeebies." Now, Alicia, would you click on us to get us up on the screen?
Heebie-jeebies.
Heebie-Jeebies. You don't know Heebie-Jeebies. Okay, don't worry about clicking on that just yet.
Okay.
Every day I get up and I put up a new blog entry at my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. And every day I put up in that entry 10 to 15 articles, actually synopsis of each article with a link to the original. And every week, usually Tom and I get together, but today it's Alicia. Tom, by the way, is recuperating from a move. So he's doing fine. Don't worry about him. Wish him well, but you don't have to worry about him. And we get together and do about 20 or 21 articles from the blog on the TV show, which Tom always calls the best of the blog. So today, we're starting on the 30th of May. If you want to read an article that I refer to here, you can go to the blog, you can click on the 30th of May on the calendar, and that'll give you 15 articles to choose from the 30th of May, and you can find the article that you're looking for there. The first article, you got a title for this?
Yeah, it says U.S. energy officials hail freedom gas, molecules of freedom.
This is this is kind of, I don't know whether to be disturbed by this or laugh. Two U.S. Department of Energy officials referred to natural gas produced in the United States as freedom gas, this is freedom gas in quotes, and quote, molecules of U.S. freedom, end quote, in a press release announcing the expansion of a natural gas facility in Texas. The expansion could double the output of that facility by 2020.
CNN.
That's from CNN. I should have said that. Thanks for catching me for failing to say it.
That's fine.
Okay.
So what do you get out of what they're saying?
Well,
How do
you
feel
know,
about it?
the Trump administration is clearly taking the position here that natural gas is and oil, and they would like to say coal, provide us with energy independence and an ability to export things, and they have no concern whatever with the side effects of that. So freedom gas, yeah, we as individuals in the state of Vermont, people get sick and die because of pollution that's mostly blown in from other states. But one of the things that I cite very often is that the American Lung Association said that approximately 300 Vermonters a year, no, they were talking about costs. The cost to Vermonters of pollution arising from our own use of fossil fuels to power transportation is approximately $330 million a year.
Right.
Which is about $480 per person per year. So if you have a family of 5, your share of that damage is $2,400 a year. That's what you're paying to have people drive cars and fly planes and so forth that use gasoline and oil.
So going back to the name, it's referring to natural gas as freedom gas.
That's right.
So do you think that the public really knows much about what natural gas is? And
I think a lot of people do. A lot of people know. I mean, they probably don't know the chemistry, but a lot of people know what fracking is.
right.
And okay, Alicia, we probably should go on to the next item. This
Okay.
is from the Los Angeles Times. Got a title?
China gears up to use rare earths as a weapon in trade war as summit approaches.
Chinese media reports, including an editorial in the flagship newspaper of the Communist Party, raised the prospect of Beijing cutting exports of commodities that are critical to the U.S. defense, energy, electronics, and automobile sectors. Now, rare earth metals are not things that people know well. Very few people have ever handled a piece of neodymium or gadolinium or dysprosium or whatever it is you want to talk about. This is a fairly broad group of rare earth metals. They have a peculiar chemistry because they're all extremely similar to each other. They're relatively abundant in the Earth's crust, but they're really hard to separate from each other. And it happens that we have mines for rare earth metals in the United States, but all of our rare earth metals that we mine, the ores are shipped to China
Right.
to process. And how do You know, if the Chinese are going to cut the supply of rare earths to the United States, that is going to affect all the sectors that we were talking about.
You know, what's really interesting too is China has one of the highest amounts of e-waste, which is electronic waste.
Yes.
That's just sort of piled up like what's inside of our landfill.
Mm-hmm.
It's all electronics. It's all electronics that nobody is using. It's the old version of the iPhone or Samsung.
That's absolutely
that,
right.
You know, people don't want because the new one came out, and I don't think China really cares how much they're using in terms of metals.
It would be interesting.
Whatever makes them the most money.
I think China may be the most capitalistic society in the world.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's really bad. Yeah, that's true. Let's go on. Do you have more to say about this, or should we go on to the
No,
next
we
one?
can go on to the next one.
Okay, we have a new picture here, and we have an item from E&E News. And you got a title on this?
So, stranded costs mount as coal vanishes from the grid.
Alicia, do you know what stranded costs are?
I think I would benefit from you telling me more about that.
Okay, let me read the thing here.
Okay.
Milwaukee-based We Industries announced in 2017 that it would close the 1,210 megawatt Pleasant Prairie coal-fired plant, and that, by the way, is what's in the picture. If you could click on that and bring it up, not there, the upper left-hand corner. There you go. Let's see, that's the Pleasant Prairie plant that we're talking about. Okay. It will save both itself and customers money to shut that plant down. And so it will, despite the fact that the plant has not yet been paid down and will not be for another 20 years. And that's what a stranded asset represents. A stranded asset is something that you have put money in, you have invested in, and by golly, you're not going to get any money out of it.
So what's the location on this?
That's
Milwaukee?
it's in Wisconsin. I'm not sure where the Pleasant Prairie plant is.
Okay.
But it's providing energy for We Industries, which is in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And based in Milwaukee. And okay, so you've got a coal-fired plant. The intention is to keep it running for another 20 years, but they're going to close it down because it's too expensive to run it.
Yeah.
And they're going to be paying down that plant for another 20 years by using other energy resources like solar, wind, whatever.
Right.
And that tells you what a stranded asset is. You build the factory, you build the plant, and it doesn't give you any money, so you shut it down.
I think also, just looking at the image, I think, solar and wind are definitely more appealing than looking at this.
Yes,
so
I would rather
why
look.
wouldn't it's all about the way things look.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yes, in some respects that's true. Having been, spent a good part of my childhood in Illinois in rural areas, I know that what it's like to drive through miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of nothing but corn. And when you find that there's something else, it is a farmhouse sitting at the edge of miles of corn, and the chickens running around in the yard in the front are something that you have to slow down for. But miles and miles of corn have no more appeal than miles and miles of solar panels, really, in the end.
Yeah.
It's just, but I'd rather have either than have that.
Yeah, really.
You can tell, by the way, that that's a coal-burning power plant by the funny thing that slopes from the middle of the right-hand side of the screen upwards to the top of the building. Mm-hmm. That thing is a conveyor belt that carries coal.
Yeah, and just imagine, if there was anything to go wrong, what kind of disaster would happen if that caught flame or, it's pretty hazardous.
Okay, we are up to Friday, May 31st, and we have an item here from the Cape Cod Times. You better click on us again.
Okay.
Upper left-hand corner.
Yeah.
There you go. We have an item from the Cape Cod Times. Do you have a title?
Here's the title. After 46 years, Pilgrim Nuclear Station shutting down.
The Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, which weathered over 4 decades of nor'easters, protests, and lawsuits, in the end could not withstand energy market forces and the costs of operating an aging plant. It is undergoing its final shutdown today, May 31st, 2017. Well, obviously, this was put up. I put it up because this article, on May 31st, because this article appeared early in the morning before this was probably 2 o'clock in the morning, this particular article came up. But that plant, has been at the focus of, as it says, protests and everything. And it's gone now. Well, it's not entirely gone. It's going to take them probably 10 years to empty the spent fuel pool, and then they've got to take it apart.
Right.
So but it's being replaced because it's too expensive to run.
Yeah.
It's just another old technology.
And what's interesting is all the costs to pay everybody and remove the power plant itself.
Really expensive. There's a huge business that's coming together to do exactly that.
Yeah.
Companies that don't do anything except take apart nuclear power plants.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay, we have a picture coming up of Salt Lake City and an item from Green Tech Media. Click on it.
All right.
There you go. What do you got for a title, Alicia?
Okay, so the title here is Utah aims to shatter records with 1,000 megawatt energy storage plant.
A one-of-a-kind facility in Utah would combine compressed air storage in salt caverns with hydrogen storage, large flow batteries, solid-state fuel cells. The Utah's electricity was 87% generated from coal in 2017, but its renewable energy sector is growing. Utah's renewable energy sector is growing very fast. But, well, we're going to get back to this article actually pretty quickly. There were, when I looked at the internet on Friday morning, there were articles all over the place about this Utah 1,000 megawatt energy storage. And one of the things that everybody was saying, it's the biggest storage plant ever to be put together to support renewable energy. And I thought to myself, Alicia, do you know about the Northfield Mountain Station?
No.
You know certainly where Northfield, Massachusetts is.
I do.
And if you go down to Northfield from Brattleboro, you go to Hinsdale, you turn on Route 63, you drive down to Northfield, you keep going through Northfield, and when you get out the other side of the town, you keep going south on Route 63. Just about the time you hit the border of Northfield and Irving, there's the Northfield Mountain Power Station. On the right side of the road, you see a solar field. On the left side of the road, you see what looks like a park. Okay. And that park has hiking, it has places you can have a picnic, you can go snowshoeing there, all kinds of things that you can do. The park was put there as part of a deal to build the Northfield Station so that it would be attractive to the people of the area. And the Northfield Station was, at one time, the largest pumped storage power station in the United States at 1,080 megawatts. You'll notice that this is bigger than this 1,000 megawatt plant that they were talking about. And what it does is, do you know what pumped storage is? You don't?
No.
Okay. In pumped storage, you pump water from a place where it's low, in this case the Connecticut River, to a storage facility at the top of a mountain. When the cost of electricity is really low, which it is in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, nobody wants electricity. So if there's electricity on the grid, you got to use it. You buy it really cheap. You use it to pump water uphill.
Oh, right.
And then during the daytime, when the price of the power is high, you allow the water to run back down and you use it to generate electricity. Okay. So you lose a little bit pumping it up, you get a little bit bringing it down. This was built to support.
How efficient do you think that is?
Not terribly, but the question, of course, is how much money can you make?
Okay.
Because one of the things that people don't realize about a nuclear power plant is it's going to put out electricity whether anybody wants it or not.
True.
And it's going to put it out at night, even if the price of electricity goes below zero, which it sometimes does. Yeah. And so what they're doing with that plant is they're using it to level the grid so that it matches demand, which is a big problem with nuclear power plants, coal power plants, natural gas power plants, everything. They've got to have something that'll make it match demand, because the big baseload power plants have to go full time. And so this is not the biggest, this thing they're proposing in Utah is not the biggest power plant storing power by any stretch of the imagination. Northfield Mountain was the biggest one when it was built in 1973, but there's much, much, much bigger ones, I think 3 or 4 times the size now. And I don't know. Let's go on, Alicia, we're going to return to this. Huh? That, by the way, is Salt Lake City. Okay. It has really tiny buildings. Either that or big mountains.
Very big mountains.
Okay. So we've got an item from Clean Technica here. What have we got?
Do you want to change?
You can click on that, yep.
Okay.
To change the thing.
IEA predicts 250 million EVs on the road by 2030.
Last year, the International Energy Agency...
Electric vehicles.
Electric vehicles. Mm-hmm. International Energy Agency predicted there would be 125 million EVs on the road worldwide by 2030. This year, it has doubled that prediction to 250 million EVs by 2030, assuming that the 25 nations that are part of the EV 30 at 30 program honor their commitments. And here again, we have the price of new technology going down. Mm-hmm. The price of EVs is falling below the price of cars that burn gasoline or oil. So why would a person want to buy a car that has maintenance problems and things like that when and you have to buy fuel when you can get an EV?
I wonder if this is like big gas companies, if they're in fear of this growing.
Well, some of them are, and some of them are actually behind it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they take different positions on that, mm-hmm. And we see a lot of motion in both. Even ExxonMobil has got a little bit of a toe in the water to find out what it can do. But I kind of suspect that the move away from fossil fuels is going to get faster and faster, and it's going to be really fast in about
I can see that
years.
Gas stations will just sort of be turning into electric charging stations.
Some of them are. As a matter of fact, Chevron is doing that in California. They're putting, and who is doing it in Europe? I think it's Shell.
Yeah.
Is putting in.
We have one right near the supermarket.
Yes.
Off of X1.
Yes, that's a Tesla mm-hmm. charging station.
Yeah.
Okay, we have an item here from. That was from Clean Technica. Okay, we're up to Saturday, June 1st.
Yeah.
And we have an item from MIT Technology Review and another picture that you can put up if you want.
Okay.
And Tom always has trouble because he has to put the picture up and read the title at the same time, and it's...
So the title reads, "A huge energy storage deal raises major doubts."
Yeah, and this is about that item that we had in Salt Lake City just a minute ago. And what this reads, this is from MIT Technology Review. These are people who are looking at what is in the news and commenting on it, and this is what they have to say. After a Japanese maker of gas turbines and a U.S. owner of salt caverns teamed up to develop a massive energy storage project based on hydrogen and compressed air, doubts have come up. This is just the next day.
Yeah.
Neither technology has a track record, and we've talked about that before. Also, neither customers nor funding has been identified. So these people in MIT Technology Review are saying, okay, so the technology makes a certain amount of sense, the companies are known, but is this really going to happen? And we don't know the answer to that. So I'm not excited by it. I could be, but I'm not. You want to go on?
Right. Okay. So the next one reads, Ohio's nuclear bailout plan balloons to embrace coal.
This is from Inside Climate News, and honestly, I find this really disturbing.
Yeah.
While other states embrace renewable energy, Ohio is heading backward. A bill passed this week by the Ohio House of Representatives would subsidize nuclear and coal power while cutting state support for renewable energy and energy efficiency, and utility customers will foot the bill.
Who signed the bill?
Nobody signed it yet, fortunately, but it was passed by the House of Representatives. It's gone to the Senate. The Senate's going to vote on it. Given that it's Ohio, I think it's altogether possible that they're going to pass that bill. And whether it's going to be signed by the governor or not, I have no idea. I have no idea. But this is extremely backward. It would be kind of like saying, okay, we've got we've got a new Navy. It's got aircraft carriers. They're powered by nuclear power, but let's do something else. Let's have copies of the USS Constitution instead. I got news for you. They may be pretty, but they're not going to work. In this case, nuclear and coal, they aren't even pretty.
No. I wonder if Ohio is taking advantage of the fact that maybe there'll be more of these materials available to them since, everyone else is going renewable.
Nobody's, well, maybe, but nobody's really building nuclear power plants except 2 reactors, which, as I recall, are in Georgia. And coal?
That's disappointing.
What's disappointing?
That they're allowing Ohio to do this.
Well, this is Ohio allowing itself to do it. Okay, you want to move on to the next item?
Yeah.
Okay, this is an item from Science Daily. We have a nice picture of a wheat field there. The wheat field, unfortunately for all of us, is not in the United States, but that's okay. We'll pretend that it is. What do you have for a title?
Climate change is already affecting global food production unequally.
The world's top 10 crops, barley, cassava, maize, oil palm, rapeseed, rice, sorghum, soybean, sugarcane, and wheat, supply in total 83% of all calories grown on cropland. That's kind of amazing, isn't it?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Research shows that climate change is affecting production of those key resources. And the article, which is in Science Daily, and I will remind people this is Saturday, June 1st, basically says that some of those crops production is increasing. For example, we're seeing an increase in production in crops in parts of Canada where it's getting warmer. Mm-hmm. Some of the crops production is declining, and the places where it's declining are places which truthfully already were poor. So, people who already go without are going with less. And that is a problem. And, climate change is a problem. It's already a problem. And it's just going to get worse until probably somewhere between 25 and 200 years after we stop putting carbon into the atmosphere, which means we've got to stop as soon as we can.
I think also people are going to have to adjust their diets in some way.
Well,
I adjust to what's available.
Yeah, I think you're right, Alicia. If you look at these crops, barley, cassava, maize, palm oil, rapeseed, rice, sorghum, soybean, sugarcane, and wheat, there's a lot of calories in there, but those calories are pretty narrowly focused.
Right. Well, sugar is in things that we don't even really need to put it in.
Yes.
I think sugar is definitely widely exploited.
Yes.
And, you know, some restrictions on certain things are going to have to be made.
Well, we have a lot of things that we can do to make things better. And, you know, one of the things that is going on in the place where I live is we are planting plants that are not part of that group. And in fact, you know, we plant tomatoes, we plant peppers, we plant the kinds of things that go into people's gardens, but we also plant things that you won't find around here, like figs and citrus fruit and things like that, because we think that we need to be resilient, and resilience among other things means that we need the broadest base of crops we can have, because, you know, one year the tomatoes all died, the potatoes all died, the peppers all died. The reason was because we had late blight, which was the same problem that killed the potatoes in Ireland in the potato famine in the 1840s and 50s. And all of those plants are closely related, closely enough related that the blight affects all of them.
Right.
And, you know, we have to be prepared for what's going to happen when, now looking at this list, barley, maize, rice, and wheat, and actually sugarcane are all from a narrowly focused group of grass plants, basically.
Right.
So, you know, and then you've got the problem of monocropping, where you have huge fields that have one crop in them, and if, like in the potato famine, if one plant gets sick, there's a good possibility all of them will.
You know, it's interesting, the food system is not, it doesn't make any sense, our food system at all. I mean, people don't know how to produce their own food anymore.
That's true.
Some people have gardens, but some people don't.
Yeah.
And, you know, how we sort of distributed food back in when we had small, like, farm stand type
farms.
Right, like when people had their little markets downtown, and, you know, one person really knows how to make bread, and one person knows how to produce good fruits and vegetables like tomatoes and greens, and then somebody knows how to produce milk and eggs. Like, people can access those things locally and support each other, but what we've done is we've shipped in quite a bit from so many different places that are so far, and we're just wasting money on fuel and energy in that respect.
Yep, I agree with you. Now we are up to Sunday, June 2nd, and Alicia, we only have about 22 or 3 minutes left, so we're going to have to move quickly through these.
Okay.
We have an item from the Voice of America.
It says, coal industry's survival in question as companies go green.
Yeah, in May at the Virginia Coal and Energy Alliance, this is astonishing to me. At the Virginia Coal and Energy Alliance's 40th annual conference, a lobbyist for Dominion Energy, which is a big utility in Virginia. The industry's best local customer gave a keynote speech. In it, he highlighted his company's agreement with Smithfield Foods to use hog waste to generate electricity. This is like saying, by the way, gang, we're not going to use your coal.
Good.
You know, it's not quite that, but it is. You know, he's saying we've got other ways to do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Hog waste.
We've got a new photograph. It's already up, so you don't have to do anything with it, Alicia. But we have an item here from Science Times.
Rising temperatures cause epic flood.
Storms have become much stronger than they ever were, and people who live in the central United States have recently experienced one of those fierce storms that are currently in the news. The storms break the record of the wettest 12 months in the United States since they started recording rain in 1895.
Yeah.
You know, 2 years ago, a third of the United States was in a state of drought.
Yeah, I know.
Now, if you go to Drought Monitor, which is the Nebraska, University of Nebraska in Lincoln, I think, UNL, it's droughtmonitor.unl.gov, I think. I might be wrong about that, but if you do a search on Drought Monitor, you'll find it. There's in the 48 contiguous states in the United States, there's no drought. No place where there's drought right now. There's a few places that are a little dry, but no drought.
Well, I don't feel like we got much snow this year as well.
Things are getting wacky.
Yeah, they are.
Our next item is from NBCnews.com.
El Nino is back. It is to blame for our severe weather woes, ?
Well, is it to blame?
Oh.
You got the two words switched, Alicia. Not that I wouldn't. It's okay.
All right,
After a spring, huh?
Your turn.
Okay, my turn. After a spring that soaked parts of California and saw destructive tornadoes rip through towns stretching from Texas to Pennsylvania, scientists are paying close attention to how much of the country's recent severe weather is due to the return of El Nino. My guess, by the way, is that almost none of it is, because we haven't really started feeling the effects of El Nino yet.
Yep, there's El Nino and La Nina.
That's right. And one is basically the opposite of the other.
Right.
So we're up to, excuse me, Monday, June 3rd. And I'm going to put up the next picture.
Some of Pennsylvania's iconic tree species might not survive climate change.
This is from the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is not a place that I would normally expect to find a lot of information of this type. But what this says is thousands of acres of mountain maple, American beech, balsam fir, paper birch, and quaking aspen that produce some of Pennsylvania's most vibrant spring, summer, and fall scenes are at risk because of climate change, a state agency said. And I got news for you. Vermont has very few trees that are not in danger of being really attacked badly by climate change.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these trees are in Vermont as well.
Yep. But you know, if you think about this, we've got an invasive fungus, which wouldn't survive here, I'm told, if the winter temperatures were as cold as they were 30 years ago.
Right.
But that invasive fungus is killing our maple trees. And that means the maple syrup industry is going to move north to survive, which in turn means since a local farmer in Windham County can't move his farm north, he's going to have to go to another crop.
Right.
And it's not just, you know, that we've got woolly adelgids that are attacking hemlock trees, and I've seen acre after acre of hemlock trees just destroyed. All of the trees in a stand destroyed in 2 years.
I mean, the maple tree is like the Vermont icon.
Yep. Firs are attacked by the balsam woolly adelgid, and we've got those in every state in every county in Vermont. We've got problems. Basically, what I've read is that the only trees that are not currently facing problems as a result of that will come as a result of climate change are the oaks and the hickories, and what we're talking about here is fall colors in Vermont. Oaks and hickories, brown.
Oh no.
It's we can do better. Okay, the next one is from the National.
Energy prices drop in Europe as cheaper renewable energy fights for market share.
Why don't you put us back up again?
Okay.
People are not going to be interested in seeing me, but they might be interested in seeing you. Gas and coal prices are plunging in Europe, hurt by the relentless threat of ever cheaper clean energy that is gaining market share and pushing out fossil fuels in the process. So what do you think of that, Alicia?
Yeah, I mean, marketing is definitely an issue, but they have programs out there that are trying to help people use solar by offering zero down payment options.
That is.
And there's definitely a huge effort to make this affordable for people.
Well, actually, what this is saying is it's affordable, and the big companies are getting to a point where they can't afford to keep
up with
gas and coal plants open because of renewable energy.
Well, that's good then.
Yes.
Their efforts are making a difference.
Yes, that's right. Our next item is from Green Tech Media, and there's another picture, so you might want to put that one up.
Okay.
Isn't that a neat picture?
Yeah.
That thing with a crane on it that you see standing in the water, that's a ship that was jacked up out of the water on its own jacks.
Interesting.
Isn't it? What do you got for a title?
Massachusetts officials recommend another 1.6 gigawatt of offshore wind.
Massachusetts officials have recommended that the state double down on its offshore wind program and sign contracts for another 1,600 megawatts of capacity in 2 solicitations to be held in the early 2020s. They were encouraged to do this by low bids in recent auctions. And that picture is a picture of the installation of one of the wind turbines at the Block Island wind farm, which is the only offshore wind farm the United States has right now. But we have a lot of stuff going on building new offshore wind farms.
Good. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a great use of space.
It is, and as a matter of fact, it's interesting to note, in case anybody is thinking about it, the Massachusetts Audubon Society and the Maine Audubon Society both came out in favor of building the Cape Wind project, which has since failed. But they came out in favor because of the numbers of lives of the numbers of birds that will be saved because we're producing energy using wind turbines instead of fossil fuels. It really is impressive how many birds are saved. For every bird that's killed by a wind turbine, 20 to 40 others are saved.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
that's something new that I've never heard of.
Yeah, I got
like
in.
That.
It did some research on that about
good.
5 years ago. I wanted to find out how in the world do they know when they say 440,000 birds were killed by wind turbines in the United States. How do they know?
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's counting every one of them.
Right.
So I did spend a couple of hours looking over in the internet to try to find out how they count them, and I found a place where it said we did an inventory of dead birds, and we found that 5,000 birds were killed in the inventory period at one site. And I looked at this, and the one site, the inventory period was 48 hours. So this is 5,000 birds killed in 2 days at one site, but the one site didn't have any wind turbines.
Interesting.
It was coal and nuclear.
Oh, yeah.
And birds were crashing into the buildings. So anyway, we have to keep going because we don't have a lot of time left. We've got about 15 minutes.
Tuesday, June 4th.
Oh, good for you. Glad you caught that. This is from Huffington Post.
Joe Biden unveils middle ground climate plan with 2050 target, room for fossil fuels.
Joe Biden promised to reverse the Trump administration's deregulatory effort and set the U.S. on course to hit a net zero emissions target by 2050 with a plan he released as an alternative to the Green New Deal. His plan is short on details, however, and one of the things about this is he's saying it's okay to use a certain amount of fossil fuels provided that you can do it in a way that is net zero emissions, and that may mean carbon capture and sequestration. And quite frankly, I don't believe we can do that. I don't think it's really practical to try. Anyway, you want to go to the next one?
Yeah.
Nice picture. You see the picture?
I do, yeah.
Okay, this is from Advanced Science News.
Environment insurance risk assessment in the face of climate change.
The last few years have seen increases in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. Adverse atmospheric events are poignant reminders of how vulnerable our society is across a broad range of threats posed by extreme environmental events. And of course, here we have a picture of a city, and I don't know what that city is, but it's being struck by lightning. And what they're saying here, what they're talking about in this particular article is an insurance risk assessments. So the insurance industry is very interested in how it can predict the results of climate change, and they're raising rates. They have to, because there's damages raising, and it's a difficult problem for them.
I think that their companies are going to suffer. They're not really, probably, insurance is going to be a difficult thing to make money off of in the future. Unless
they raise the rates, which they're going to have to do, which means people are going to have to pay more, which means it's going to be harder to buy a house because you have to have insurance on it, and you have to buy the insurance at a higher rate. I mean, this is not good for our entire economy.
No, it's not.
Okay, our next item is from Energy Live News.
Germany goes 47% renewable so far this year.
This is impressive. So far this year, renewables have produced 47% of all electricity supplied to the public grid in Germany, according to the Fraunhofer Institute's head of the Department of New Devices and Technologies. This is significantly above last year's clean energy share, which was 40.6% of generation. So almost half of the electricity produced in Germany is renewable.
Yeah. Europe is definitely
ahead of us.
Oh yeah, they're like speeding through this. They're doing
well. Some of the countries are. There was an article that I found in the news today, which said that, and we will talk about it next week. There was a 94% decline in just a couple of months in the number of solar systems installed in the UK, because the current government has withdrawn support for them.
That's terrible.
And the Labour government is telling this has happened since an election, so this is a problem. The Labour government has accused the Tories of supporting fracking at the expense of renewables, which doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
Okay, we are up to Wednesday, June 5th, and we have an item here from Renew Economy.
Renewable hydrogen getting cheaper. Australia could lead global market.
Oh, I have a picture. There it is. Can you tell what that picture is?
A hydrogen plant.
I looked at that picture and I thought, what in the world is that? And it says hydrogen plant, and that thing says H2, which is hydrogen. But by golly, the only thing I can figure is that it must be storage at a plant.
Yeah, storage, definitely.
Hydrogen is hard stuff to store, by the way, because the molecules are so small.
I know.
That they can pass right through steel.
I think hydrogen it's so interesting the way it double bonds the way it does.
Alicia, by the way, is a scientist, so don't be don't be surprised by what she says. Why don't you put us up? It's a difficult picture. It's a difficult picture to look at.
All right.
Okay. Did you read the title on this?
I did.
Okay, then
It's
I'll
your
read
turn.
the rest of it. Some of Australia's leading energy experts say that renewable hydrogen is beginning to reach cost parity with some fossil fuel equivalents. Hydrogen could emerge as a high potential export industry for Australia worth tens of billions of dollars. Now this is super interesting because I don't know, I'm just in the process of writing an article for Clean Technica.
Oh, good.
And the article is about a thing called Wright's Law. And you know how the price of computers has gone down?
Yeah.
And the price of, well, Wright's Law is about new technologies and how the price of new technologies goes. And people know this under the name of cost curve or experience curve. And what happens is as people learn to use a new technology to manufacture things or whatever, the price goes down because they know more and more about it, which is why the price of computers has gone down the way that it has. The first computer that I worked with, the memory was what's called core, which had to be stitched by hand.
Yeah.
And it cost $1 a bit when it was first designed.
Wow.
So 16 kilobytes cost $138,000.
Well, also the demand for computers has gone up, so they have to find a way to make it less expensive.
Absolutely. But what's happened is Wright's Law says as you use a new technology, the price declines. And interestingly enough, and they have done this, they've tried this over and over and over. And you know, we have articles from IEEE Spectrum and things like that, papers, you know. Once you establish the rate at which the decline happens, you know the rate at which the decline will continue to happen.
Right.
So if hydrogen has come to a point of parity with natural gas, for example, which is really the thing that's most equivalent to it, that means it's going to keep going down. And that means the price of natural gas is going to be undercut to the point where it won't be possible to sell it anymore. And this is renewable hydrogen, which means it's produced using solar and wind. So if the sun is shining and you have too much electricity from all your solar plants, the excess goes into making hydrogen. If you have too much wind power, the excess electricity goes into making hydrogen. And when the wind power stops, solar power stops, you got all that hydrogen. You use that to make electricity.
Everything sort of backs each other up. So
that's right.
It's like the Three Musketeers.
There you go. Okay, you want to go on?
Yep.
We've got 6 minutes for 2 items, which is exactly where we should be.
Okay. Wall Street issues peak car warning.
Have you ever heard of peak oil?
No.
You've heard of peak oil. The point at which the oil production starts to decline.
Okay.
Okay. Well, this is Wall Street issuing a peak car warning. They're saying we've reached the point where car production is going to decline.
Right.
And
which is good.
This is an interesting thing. This is in Clean Technica. A number of Wall Street cognoscenti have begun warning that the world has reached the peak car point. Last week, John Murphy, managing director of the Bank of America, told a conference, quote, the industry is right now staring down the barrel of what we think is going to be a significant downturn. And one of the things that's interesting about this is day after day, Clean Technica is really focused on transportation. Day after day, you go to Clean Technica and you see incredible increases in the numbers of Teslas that are being sold, or car companies saying that they are going to stop building cars with internal combustion engines in them. Meanwhile, the standard car companies are seeing sales decline. We have a backlog of SUVs and pickup trucks in the United States that are remaining unsold.
Yeah.
And companies like General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, you name it, are kind of, honestly, I think they're just getting deeper and deeper into trouble unless they get a hold of this.
But I mean, they've also made so much money.
Oh, they have.
So this happens where a new technology comes in and replaces other things, and that's just how it works. That's how it works.
General Motors, by the way, got into trouble with Donald Trump because they said they were going to close some plants. Donald Trump didn't like that. And the CEO of General Motors, I don't remember her name, but she said, we're not going to close those plants permanently. We're converting them to make electric vehicles.
Good. Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. Okay, we have one last item here, and we have a picture. That looks like one happy girl.
Let's go ahead and click on it.
There you go. That girl is Kelsey Juliana, and she's happy because she's being greeted by her supporters who are excited to see her, little kids. It wasn't that long ago when she was a little kid who started up a lawsuit against the United States government because she and other people in the lawsuit are claiming that the government is failing to give them something that they have a right to, which is an ability to live.
Right.
Okay, this is from the New York Times.
This is great. Judge gives both sides a grilling in youth climate case against the government.
In the case of Juliana versus the United States, 3 federal judges heard arguments about whether young people have a constitutional right to be protected from climate change. They pushed skeptically on both sides of the issue. Now, there may be a place here where these judges are just going to say we can't render a decision in this case. The case has been going on for years, and it was a case that was brought by people who were all minors. I don't remember how many, but there were a number of them. The fellow you see on the right there, who's wearing dark glasses and smiling, is another person in the case. But they're suing because they're saying they have a constitutional right to life. And climate change is threatening their life, and the government has a constitutional responsibility.
It's a great approach.
Well, it's being done all over the country.
Yeah.
And we'll just have to see what happens with this. It's possible that it'll get...
I hope she wins.
Well, I do too, as a matter of fact. I mean,
that would be great.
I have a granddaughter who is about her age.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see her live a comfortable life in a pleasant place to live.
That's the idea for sticking up for our planet, is to stick up for future generations.
Absolutely. And I got news to any conservative who is convinced by arguments that we should have a free market and who wants to be patriotic and pro-American. We're not going to have a free market if our society collapses, and it could collapse. And we're not going to have a United States if our government collapses.
Right. What good is the money if there's no planet to spend
absolutely.
it on?
There's no question about it. Okay, Alicia, why don't you put us up again?
Okay.
And it's because it's time to say goodbye. So, wave goodbye.
Thank you.
Wave goodbye.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time.